Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. We're looking at the book of Daniel, specifically the prophecies. We want to eventually go into the book of Revelation, so we're setting it up that we're going to be looking at the book of Daniel kind of through the lens of Revelation, or maybe it's the other way around. We'll look at Revelation through the lens of Daniel. Either way, we're here at Daniel 8. Now, Daniel 8, it starts here in verse 1 to connect this vision with the previous vision. It says that Daniel had a second vision that was like the first. Well, Daniel 7 is going to be your first vision that Daniel has. Okay? So there are these two animals instead of four. So Daniel 7 had four, this one only has two. The two animals represent Medo-Persia and Greece. Now we find, once again, in Daniel 8, there's this little horn. But this time, instead of the little horn coming from the fourth beast, which we assume to be this Roman kind of beast, it comes from Greece. Now, this is going to be important because we saw in Daniel 7 that there were four different kingdoms of Greece, and we're going to see that again here. And the four different kingdoms, there was the king of the north and the king of the south. And in Daniel 11, we're going to be reading about this war between the king of the north and the king of the south. This little horn that comes out of Greece is going to be that king of the north, that one who boasts and who exalts himself above any other god, and who establishes himself between the Holy Land and the sea. That's going to be this little horn fella. Now, he takes away the daily sacrifice and casts down the sanctuary. That, if you remember right, that happens also in Daniel chapter 7, right? It talks about how he tries to change the set times and how he goes against the tabernacle itself. I think that might be from Revelation 13, though. There are 2,300 days, it says evenings and mornings, until the sanctuary is cleansed. And now that detail there is going to be something we need to look at a little more intently. But first, the ram, we saw that they were identified as Medo-Persia and Greece. This ram is your Medo-Persian Empire. Notice the one horn sticks up further than the other. This goes back to the bear, the second beast of Daniel 7, where it was raised up on one side. It pushes westward, northward, and southward, just like there were three ribs representing three conquests. Okay? The goat, this is at first Alexander, represented with one horn. The goat does not touch the ground, which might be connecting it back to the four wings of the leopard in Daniel 7:6. The goat, now this is something that you can learn from raising sheep and goats, or from even just doing a quick search on the internet and finding out. Goats are actually inferior to rams in strength. It does not take any effort for the ram to kill the goat. So when we see here this goat taking down the ram, this is representing what Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 2:39. Each element is inferior to the previous one. You have silver. Well, silver isn't as grand as gold. Brass isn't as grand as silver. Iron isn't as grand as brass. So you have each one being inferior to the previous, and yet somehow it takes over the kingdom. So we have here this goat that takes down a ram. Now notice the goat stomps on the ram, and this can connect us back to that idea of devouring and breaking in pieces and stomping on and trying to crush. There are four horns that take the place of the first in Daniel 8. The first horn breaks off and four replace it, and they go to the four corners, right, to the four different winds, representing the four corners of the earth. One's north, south, east, west, right? Okay. So here's the four provinces of Greece to kind of give you a picture that you can see what I'm talking about here. Here's your Seleucid Empire towards the east. Here's Cassander towards the west, This one's your king of the north, and this one's your king of the south. Okay? I don't know that this is right. Maybe I'm mistaken here. I'm looking at here, king of the north, king of the south. It would suggest these two. Okay, well, maybe I'm mistaken and I'm looking at the map wrong here. Either way, when you look at the king of the north, well, where is it that the Antichrist comes from? One of these. Obviously not the south. Some have suggested up here, and that would give rise to the Pope being the Antichrist or Hitler being the Antichrist. I'm not so quick to jump on any of the bandwagons to say that he comes from this one or that one or that one, or I don't get in that. I think it's speculation, and there's a lot that the scripture does tell us that we're ignoring when we speculate. So there's dual purposes of this vision. Because the little horn comes from Greece, many have claimed this to be Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, if you don't know history, like I didn't know really history, and you start reading about this Antiochus Epiphanes guy, don't worry about it. During the time of the Maccabees, which is kind of the intertestamental period, Malachi ends about 400 years before the New Testament begins. During that time, there are these people called the Maccabees. Antiochus sacrificed a pig on the altar. There was a revolt against them, and the celebration of the victory against Antiochus is today known as Hanukkah. Now, we see there is somewhat of a fulfillment in Antiochus Epiphanes. I'm not going to deny that. However, we don't find every detail of Daniel 8 through 12 being fulfilled in Antiochus Epiphanes, so we shouldn't stop there. Daniel 8, 17, 19, and 26, these verses express the vision to be the time of the end and many days in the future. Now, if Antiochus Epiphanes, before Jesus even arrives on the scene, if that's the time of the end, then we're dealing with a really hard issue of how do you express the New Testament then? The New Testament, apparently, if Antiochus Epiphanes is at the time of the end, the New Testament's just completely erroneous. Okay. This little horn, once again, same phrase, right? Little horn. Notice verse 9, that he grows towards the southeast and toward the pleasant land. This most likely asserts that the little horn arises from the northern part of the kingdom. Once again, we see in Daniel 11, you're gonna see this more, but I'm just gonna tell you, you've probably already jumped there to make sure I'm right. There's the king of the north, king of the south. You start in Daniel 11, verse 21, and you go forward, and you just find the whole thing almost seems to be revolving around this king of the north who wants to destroy the king of the south and also wants to take over the pleasant land, the holy land, and the holy people. Now, in Daniel 8, we see that this little horn casts down some of the stars. I think that's Daniel 8:10. Now, when you read Revelation 12:4, where the dragon casts down a third of the stars, a lot of people take this here to mean that Satan deceived some of the angels, and some of the angels are now fallen angels, demons, and so Satan somehow took a third of the angels and made them into demons. I'm not so sure that's really what it's talking about. I think maybe this Revelation 12:4 connects back to some of the stars being cast down and being trampled on. And we can see in Daniel 12:3, the saints are called stars. The wise will shine like stars. Paul even references that, right? In Philippians chapter 2, is it verse 17? Philippians 2. Anyway, he tramples the stars. Once again, if the casting down of stars is the casting down of the fallen angels, then why would Satan trample on them? Are they not his minions? I mean, why would he trample them? Okay, he magnifies himself. Once again, I'm putting all these scriptures, all these pieces together here. You see Daniel 7:8, he boasts. 7:25, he magnifies himself and boasts against the saints. He boasts against the kingdom. He boasts against the Most High. He boasts against the sanctuary. Revelation 13, 5, and 6. He's speaking blasphemy. Just over and over again, the detail's the exact same, right? He takes away the daily sacrifice and casts down the sanctuary. Once again, we saw this in Daniel 7:25. That was going to be something that we should be looking out for. We find this man of fierce countenance arises. This is under the interpretation, but not by his own power. Now remember, back in Daniel 2, there's a stone cut out, but not by human hands. Is it starting to piece it together? In Revelation 13:2, the dragon gives the Antichrist his kingdom. In 2 Thessalonians 2:9, once again, we have this idea that this Antichrist figure, it's not by his own power that he comes to power. He shall destroy the mighty people and the holy people. I think these are kind of two different people being expressed here. You have the mighty, who are the saints, the holy, who are Israel, who are not necessarily saved, but will be. Or maybe it's even the other way. We'll get into that. Compare Daniel 7:21 and 25, where he attacks the saints, and the same statement is in Revelation 13:7. He shall cause deceit to prosper. Once again, 2 Thessalonians 2:9 and 10. Paul pretty much expresses it's the love of the truth that will save you. Why? Because this Antichrist figure is going to cause deceit to prosper. And unless you love the truth, you're also going to be carried away with that deception. Now, it's by peace that he'll destroy many. That's an important detail. We're going to find in Daniel 9 that he's going to make a covenant or a pact of peace. And so it's going to be by peace that he destroys many. I believe it's in Isaiah a few times where it comes up to express how Israel, they think that they're secure. They have the temple and the sacrifices for only a small time before they're taken away again. It's this idea here that by peace he destroys many. He stands up to the Prince of Princes. Well, who's that? We expect this to be the Messiah, right? This is Jesus. Once again, going back to what we've already expressed here, I've also thrown in an extra 2 Thessalonians 2:4. It all goes hand in glove together. It's really simple. It's really basic once you start to understand some of the pattern here. And this is why Daniel is the framework. Now, this evenings and morning business, there is a post-trib, pre-wrath, rapture position that takes this 2,300 evenings and mornings and suggests this begins with the Abomination of Desolation. This begins with the middle of the week and then continues for 1,000 days after the tribulation is already over. But that can't be. In Daniel 8:13, we read about 2,300 days until the cleansing of the sanctuary. Now, here's the problem. It confuses the issue because in Daniel 9 we will find a 7-year tribulation. Halfway through is the Abomination of Desolation spoken of here in Daniel 8:10 through 12. Now, will there truly be a 3-year gap between the end of the tribulation and the second coming of Jesus? How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and host to be trampled underfoot? Notice the question. Daniel's in exile. There is no sacrifice currently. Therefore, the question begins with how long from the time the sacrifice begins. Why? It hasn't already started. So the vision concerning the sacrifice here, well, there has to be a sacrifice to begin before it can be cut off. Okay? So the question here is how long from the time that the sacrifice begins to the time of the end. So we should be looking for about 6 years between when the sacrifice begins, is taken away, and then is restored. Okay? we should be looking at a 6-year period. So the sacrifice will begin about a year into the tribulation. And then with the coming of Jesus, it will be that the sacrifice and the sanctuary are restored. Okay, I think that's it. Yep. Okay. So with that, I bid you grace and peace in Christ Jesus. I hope this teaching is helping to understand what's going on. If you have any questions or comments, please question away. Put it in below in the comments. Until next time, I bid you adieu.